All right, Arkansas, grab your coffee, get jacked up. It's time for another episode of the Block Talk. I am here with Ancil Lea. Welcome, Ancil.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you, Jamie.
Yes, and I'm so excited because we met by chance.
We did.
In one of your favorite places, a coffee shop.
Blue Cell Coffee in Conway.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, and I was wearing a Bluebird shirt, and I think you were looking at the soccer affiliation. You're a soccer dad.
I am, and actually a former high school soccer coach for 14 years. But my baby girl played for the Bluebirds, the mighty Bluebirds here in Little Rock.
Yep, and so the Bluebird shirt, I said, hey, no, not soccer. This is for real estate. But we ended up forming a little bit of a friendship there, and sort of from that point have kind of gotten to know each other a little bit better. And I want to have you on the show because of so many different things, but the object of the podcast is to add value to our community.
Sure.
Something that I feel you have done a great deal of already.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. So I want to start with your story and kind of where you come from.
Yeah.
And I know that you're an OBU grad. But
I am.
How'd you get there?
How did I get there? I actually grew up in Conway, and actually went to UCA to start out with. I went through all of the primary schools, whatnot, and just had a great Conway back in the 60s and 70s was just an awesome place. You'd think of Conway now, but you think of Conway then, it was 15,000 to 20,000 folks. It was small. It was almost rural, you know.
That's weird to think about for me, just thinking Conway being a rural place.
Really. And we lived on the edge of town, and it was just really kind of magical. We lived, when my mother's father, my grandfather, died when she was 2 in a plane crash, and he left her property, which was on the outskirts of town. And so that's where we lived. We lived on the outskirts of town with a creek running through it and a big patch of woods behind it. And it was just the best growing up, you know, to be outside all the time and, playing in the creek and, just exploring. It was really magical. It's kind of, I wish my kids could have done that. You know, we grew up we were in the subdivision, in Conway, but it was just a great time.
Yeah. So you decided to stay close to home too after graduation. You came back, right? And
it's kind of funny how all that works. I went to OBU and after being in Arkadelphia for 4+ years, I felt like Conway was really where I wanted to be. So yeah, I came back home, and at the time I had a little girl, and so I was really a single dad, and really came back where my mom helped me kind of raise her, and so that was thank goodness for my mom.
Yeah, well, I've heard that grandparents and grandchildren have a common enemy, which is the parent. So I know that probably is beneficial, but then there's those times that you're like, would you please stop taking her to the candy store? So that's exciting, and I understand what it's like as a single parent trying to build, a business and a future and opportunity for your children. And of course, Arkansas is a very business-friendly place. There's a lot of opportunity here, especially for someone who has graduated and you're in a situation where you have a degree and you can go out and seek sort of anything that you want. So what made you shift your career towards healthcare, which is what your background is in?
It's a funny story. Down at OBU, I had a student job. My student job was to write parking tickets.
Get away from me.
I know.
I got a second one not 10 minutes ago. I'm the worst at that.
Me too. But I wrote, that's kind of was my first job to work for the Dean of Students. And I went around. I was not very popular. But
there he is again.
Yes. And so I did that. And so one of the other things that happened is that really there was no computerization at OBU. Actually, there's like one computer on campus at the time. There were no PCs or anything like that. That was like back in the mid 80s. And so the dean of students, the dean said, "Hey, would somebody go punch these all these tickets into the computer?" And I said, no, but everyone was kind of scared of computers back then. Yeah. It's kind of funny. And since we live,
didn't they?
Right, and since we live with one, all the time now, it's just kind of funny. But back then, so I volunteered. I said, hey, I'll go do it. And so I started entering all these tickets we were writing into the computer so that they would go onto the students' accounts. And so what happened is that I just upon graduation, right at graduation, I was actually in Washington, D.C. and on a trip with the political science department with Dr. Hal Bass. And I got a call. They said, a friend of mine said, I'm leaving a position selling medical software. I know you've been working with computers down at OBU. Would you like to do that? I said, absolutely. I want a job.
Yeah.
And
everyone doesn't like the ticket writer guy, so please get me out of here.
So I came back and interviewed and was hired. And I walked straight out of college into doing medical software. There was no computerization in medical clinics back then, or really much in hospitals or surgery centers. It was all paper, typewriters. Everything was done by hand.
I mean, that has got to be a major for you just over the years watching the changes in that industry, because I know when I go now, the doctor has an iPad. They put everything in the iPad, and then their nurse already has it. By the time I see her, she's got the lab from the other guy. I mean, it's all, the information is instant. And at the end of this year, there's even hospitals here locally that will have telemedicine where you can just log in and talk to your doctor. I mean, how has that affected your career over time? You just have to constantly adapt?
That's been one of the most exciting things about in my career is that two things really happen: is technology has improved, and medicine has raced as well. And there's just been a lot of innovation on both sides. So it's been very exciting to try to keep up with both of it.
Yeah.
From the very large systems that we had when we first started down to now, from a PC to your everything being on your mobile device, it's just incredible, and the access to information that the physicians can get to and provide.
Could you say it again, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Siri. I didn't mean to include her in this conversation.
Be having trouble.
Sorry. At any rate, it's just raced, and has just been it's taken effort to keep up with it.
Yeah.
And then here in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of, with the advent of the High-Tech Act and trying to get everyone over to electronic medical records, there's been just a huge push by the federal government because of reimbursement, that you've got to be on electronic medical records of some sort.
Yeah, which, I mean, you mentioned that medicine had advanced at the same time as technology, and that is so true, but you also said there had to be effort involved with keeping up with that curve. Arkansas is one of the leaders in both medicine and financial technology specifically, but technology in general. We've done a lot of amazing things here in this state particularly that the nation may not be aware of. Have you felt kind of the effects of that in your career? Have you been able to watch just the accolades that come along with that sort of fall into your field and to you specifically?
That's a great question, because usually what happened, especially in medical software technology, most of these companies would come to Memphis. They would go to Memphis. They would step over Arkansas and go to Texas or go to Oklahoma City or whatever. And they just kind of leave us alone. But what's happened, man, right now there's such an innovation movement here in the state of Arkansas with like Health Tech Arkansas and the Venture Center and some of the others. And really, I would say even privately, with like the Arkansas Heart Hospital, with Arkansas Urology, I mean, and many others that are doing some very, some really cool things in regards to technology, some very innovative things, and investing in that.
Yeah, it also allows for opportunity, like you talked about with your kids. Growing up in this area now, there's so much more opportunity, I'm sure, than initially there was, because we are known nationwide to be one of the largest agriculture states. And we have all these accolades for, yes, we sell all the rice. But additionally, you can come here. 70% of the country's medical practitioners at some point come through UAMS or through that university system of medical sciences, which kind of blew my mind when I figured that out. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Interesting. I worked with a startup company out of New York. And it was run by a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon was from Australia. He did his residency, he did his work in Little Rock, and he came back here. Was like, wow, I'm home, and it was it's interesting that really we've got some, Children's Hospital, I mean,
Second to none.
it's really, and UMS, and then the rest of the hospital systems, the privates, the
Baptist and St. Vincent, and I mean, all of them.
right, Arkansas Surgical Hospital, they're doing some great things, and so we were in a good spot. I think we're one of the best kept secrets in the country.
Yeah, well, not for long. So all work and no play would make Ancil a dull boy. So tell me about, you went from being a single dad to, I know now that you're married and have several more children.
Yes, we have a boatload more children. Yes.
I think we pulled out a picture the other day and I was counting. And you were
Right.
like, me too.
Right. Yeah. So now with our new adoptive daughter, we have 6 children, and I have 1 grandson.
Yes, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
On both. And I know adoption, that's something in Arkansas that maybe it's not as talked about as much as it needs to be, but we are a rural community for the most part. And so there are some issues with being in a rural community, having little access to things. And especially when you're talking about adoption, we don't have the ability to house all of these children who are in the system. But when you get the opportunity, it certainly is a life-changing experience. Can you shed some light on what that experience looked like for your family?
Sure. I've been a part of, actually, since I graduated from OBU, was a part of the Arkansas Baptist Children's Home System, where I actually sat on the board. But what that allowed me to do is just to really see the kids. And actually, I started out as a child sponsor, where I just sponsored a child, but would get to know them. And as after we got, especially after my wife and I got married, we were more involved, and we got to know the kids. And then fast forward to about 5 years ago, I was asked to be on the board at Soaring Wings Ranch, which is just north of Little Rock, east of Conway, in Enola, the area. And really what they do is take care of kids that are there through no fault of their own, and more of a foster care type situation, more of a group home. And we got involved. I was on the board, but we thought we'd do a little bit more. We thought, since we kind of sponsored kids in the past, we thought we might do this program called Extended Family. And what that means is that for 1 weekend out of a month, we'd have a child come stay with us, and say 1 weekend out of the month, and for a week during the summer and a week at Christmas, they would come hang out with us and just be part of our family. And we just gave them a place to, like I've said, eat pizza, watch TV, watch movies, play with our dogs. We got lots of dogs. It's funny how that works, but and so we did that, and we got a little girl, and she was 9 years old. And we just got to know her, and she just was she would just drug her to soccer games, just everywhere our family went. I mean, she would just drug her with us,
just in the fold.
Yeah, truly. And here about 2 years ago, she tried to get adopted again, and she'd been in the foster care system since she was 2, and that didn't work out. She was stuck and didn't have any place to go. We're like, what do we do, And so we, after much prayer and we talked about it as a family, that we would come and take her on as a provisional foster home. It just really kind of for a period of time. Yeah. And now that was about 2 years ago, and within a year, we became a full foster home. We got approved as a full, whatever you call it, approved, whatever you. But we became a foster home, and about a year ago, she said that she told her counselor she wanted us to adopt her, and so we were like, wow. So we thought about that and talked to her. We talked to her. I actually. Made her write a paper.
She's like, wait a minute,
yeah.
I'm not sure.
I said, write me a paper. Can you put that, reduce it to writing? Would you write that out? And it was just the most awesome thing. And so we inquired, and now, as of September the 20th, we've adopted her.
Yeah.
So
she's a beautiful girl.
Yeah, she's 14.
Yeah.
So that's, it's pretty exciting. And our deal is that she loves to drive the car, and so we drive almost every day. She's a really good driver, and but we get to spend some cool time together. Riding in that car, talking, and me trying not to holler too much. No, she does a great job. I'm just real proud of her.
Well, and what's great about it is Soaring Wings, the program itself. If you haven't heard of it or if you haven't seen anything about it, get on Facebook, look them up.
Yeah.
They recently had a large banquet I saw, and it's just a celebration of the things they're doing in our state. And it's a major, like what you've done as a family is bringing someone into the fold like that doesn't already have an opportunity to thrive and to have a family support them. Any endeavor that she takes from this point forward is going to feel supported, and there's going to be someone behind it. And changing one life can certainly change the lives of many others, as you've seen in the past. I mean, a lot of things I notice people come from hardship are typically so much more driven to follow their dreams and to complete a goal because they just can't believe they've been given this opportunity. Does that feel like the way that she has kind of taken life on since then?
The coolest thing has been the effect it's had on my kids.
Yeah.
It has really had an impact that you could only talk about this kind of stuff, but unless you live it, you get to fully appreciate and
compassion.
Yeah, and have it affect you.
Yeah.
And those around us. We're in a small group at church. I actually lead a small group. And they've been a part of it as well, and that's been just really cool to be able to share. And I'd say beside the small group, I've had, my Leslie's parents are still alive, and so she's got grandparents, and so they're just close and loving, and so they've been impacted as well.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So you are the man of many things. You kind of move from project to project, and that's more, of course, in your personal life and in your past. I know you've even written a book that people can buy on Amazon or go down to Blue Cell, has several copies there down at the tech park. Don't show them this. But their Blue Cell at the tech park has copies of Common Grounds. Can you tell me what inspired you to write a book about coffee shop working?
It's really funny because I had written a book.
Meet some great people in coffee shops.
You do, don't you?
Yeah.
The networking aspect there is just incredible. But I had written a book the year before. I wrote Common Grounds, and it was just more geared around healthcare. It was around cybersecurity for healthcare. It was very pretty much just a small ebook that I put out, and
Nuts and bolts.
that was actually endorsed and pushed out by the Arkansas Medical Society. Right. So I didn't charge for it; it was a free deal. And so the next year, I thought I would write something on. At the time, I was going to write it on healthcare marketing. And then I started writing, and I thought, gosh, what do I want to do that for?
I already do this every day at work.
So I thought, well, let's write about something that I love. I think there's kind of a niche here, So I felt like since I had been an entrepreneur and really have used coffee shops to really start my business and to work out of, I thought it was just something I really wanted to talk about. And so I wrote Common Grounds and and it's been a lot of fun. And it's at several times during the course of time on Amazon, we've been #1.
That's amazing.
Which is it took a lot of, that takes a lot of effort, but to write and self-publish is a whole game within itself. And
right.
And I learned a lot.
Yeah, and it's a great book. I had a chance to pick it up between our last meeting and this one.
You did?
Yeah, and what's funny is I think it's just great the way that works, because I went to the coffee shop to have a meeting about real estate, and I walked in, I thought, oh, I'm interviewing him next week. I ought to pick this up. And so it was an opportunity for me to get to know you even on a different level. And what I found is that that's what our whole society, at least in my group, that's what we do. We go to Nexus, we go to Blue Cell, we go to Zateo, we go to all these local places, and we sit down and we have a connection with somebody else, and we learn who they are and what they're about, and then we spur business from there. And sometimes it's not even business, it's that relationship, and that's kind of how we met. We were in the same place doing two completely different things, had no business with one another, and here we are.
Wow. It is, I love it because I really do believe it's neutral ground. I believe it's common grounds. I mean, not, to be punny, but I really think that it just is very allows you to be yourself. You're not, anything else, and people can relax. And it's just a very natural place to meet folks, to do business. I'm just amazed how much, the largest deals I've ever signed have been in a coffee shop.
Yeah. You know what? Me too. And I didn't really think about that till just now. But some of the best contacts I've ever made have been sitting across a cup of coffee. So I'm already a self-published author. I've already made impacts in lives all around the state, especially, namely one that's in my family. I've already built a family and have a family history in Conway. So I've already had a successful career in medical. So what are you doing now?
Well, tomorrow I'm riding a mountain bike in the up around Heber Springs in my first gravel bike race.
Boy, you don't stay bored, do you?
Well, I've been riding a bike here probably since the first of the year, but health and fitness is a big deal. It just so happens that the guys in my home group are big cyclists, and some of the funny thing, probably some of the biggest cyclists in the state of Arkansas. So they've got me on a bike, riding, and so tomorrow I ride my first race on a gravel race called the Diamond Bluff Bonanza, which is just south of Heber Springs, north of Quitman.
I'm not going to lie, that sounds very challenging. It's one thing to ride a bike on asphalt, but gravel's a whole nother thing.
Just
tell me you practice.
I know I'm going to practice this afternoon. So, but I've been riding for for the last almost 10, 11 months. So,
well, we wish you luck in that.
Well, thanks.
But what about professionally? What's going on with your Windrock?
Program? I took the first of the year we took an idea through the Delta I Fund through Windrock, and it was a great experience. And it's just, and I still, matter of fact, I meet Monday with my Innovate team at Windrock. So I stay connected with them and get insight from those guys. But we've really developed an idea in regards to healthcare technology, which we think is unique. We've developed some processes for selection of software. Not only selection, but assessment, selection, implementation. We've built this process that we're trying to take to market, and actually we've got several clients: Arkansas Surgical Hospital, Arkansas Urology, Radiology Consultants, and others.
And you're the authority on this. Like, I don't really. There's no one else that can really compare to this, because you have been in healthcare technology since the whole room was a computer. So it has to be, very, very rewarding for you now to be able to look at this process and implement it into your medical community.
Oh, it is. And, it about 3 or 4 years ago, I had both CEOs of Arkansas Surgical Hospital and Arkansas Urology take me to lunch. And I really credit them. They took me to lunch and said, all right, Ancil, we don't want you to sell us anything, okay? We want you to get on the other side of the desk and help us select something. And so from sitting on that side of the desk, because all the tips and tricks, and what everybody's trying to do and what their slant is, and when it's a good time to buy, so you can get a discount.
Right. Be ahead of the curve too, because technology is something that changes so quickly that you could buy in today, and then tomorrow a better product is here.
Absolutely.
Netflix used to be like Redbox, right? You would go and pick up the movie from the box, and I know there's still Red boxes out there, but then all of a sudden you can just get the movies mailed to you. I don't know about you, but I am lazy when I want to watch a movie. I'm not driving to the McDonald's to check it out if I can just order it. I'm
telling you, the Advent, I've just installed about 3 or 4 Rokus here lately, and either my mom and my stepdad went to a assisted living, and my stepdad had to have he had to watch the Texas Rangers, and he had to have the Longhorn Network, and then they had to have all their shows. And so before I knew it, I'm installing Rokus all over this assisted living place. It's kind of funny, but it's just everything's streaming. You can just get everything you want, right, streaming. So
I mean, it's incredible.
but that happens in, I mean, healthcare too. I mean, you take that same thing and you look over into healthcare, and just see, look into the future. And there's a lot of healthcare historically lags behind everything else, and probably for a good reason, to let things kind of play out or get the bugs worked out or get processes worked out. So there's some great innovation, and I've had several companies, again, since we did this Delta iFund launch here in September. I've had just a ton. They hit my LinkedIn page, and contact me. It's and I am just impressed with how LinkedIn works.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like the Facebook for professionals. And
really?
I love LinkedIn because it's one of those things where I'll do an interview with someone like you or just anybody, and I'll get this message saying, hey, what about this person? They add so much value to the community. And it's just amazing. And you don't get that on any other platform. So I really enjoy that as well. And there's a lot of innovation with entrepreneurs. And so I'm sure you see that all the time with healthcare. You see these young people coming in, or even older people coming in with these great ideas that could potentially shift the way that we do things. You mentioned that medical can sometimes be behind with technology, and it's interesting because what I was thinking in my head is the all-encompassing nature of healthcare. So I'm at the doctor the other day and I'm washing my hands and I'm thinking, I bet it was so relieving for doctors to be able to go boop and get the soap on their hand, boop and get the soap out of the water instead of touching the handle and touching the dispenser. And that's just a small piece of then taking an iPad and being telemedicine with your patients. I mean, it just encompasses every little thing. You must stay busy.
There's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of. I mean, from care to the care of patients to really on the physician side of it, that you're getting your documentation right, that you're tracking things correctly to give good care to your patients, and to be able to communicate with them. That's one of the things I see that I'm working on right now is really. Trying to get through the call system, if you will, to get to the doctor, to the nurse, to get your questions answered. I think that's going to be an area that you see in the future that will be automated even more. Yeah,
which is exciting. And then also, I'm medically terrified of everything. So admission, when it's medical, I'm going, oh, not my area, because it's just amazing to me the way that doctors look at problems and they can address them from so many different directions, and there's so many different opinions on how to handle care and what medicine works and what natural remedy works, and it's just the most incredible industry. So I don't envy you, because I know that there's probably a lot to sort through and a lot to figure out when you're weighing what's the best thing, especially with funding. What's the best thing to put our money towards when, again, it could change tomorrow on a dime?
For sure, and you've got to just really, and I think that's one of the things that I do, is that really I sit down with them and look at their priorities and try to find the solutions that do meet those. And because again, there's all kinds of technology that's being that's being developed that may or may not be in the end be helpful.
Right. So I do want to talk to you about something real quick before we go, because you have another daughter who is just all over the place in Arkansas. She's at Crystal Bridges. She's at Magnolia Market. So tell me a little bit about her.
My daughter, Amber E. Lee, she has developed, I was amazed at her in that I didn't know if she would, I hope she'll watch this and hope she won't get mad at me. But I was like, what is she going to get a degree in? What is she going to do? And so she got a degree in ceramics. I'm like, okay, where do we go with this?
Yeah.
But what she taught me, she teaches me now. Because she followed her passion, and following her passion, she went down to Baton Rouge and was going to get into LSU grad school. And while she was there, she got exposed to this place called Grandmother's Buttons, and from Grandmother's Buttons, she learned how to make jewelry out of these antique buttons. Well, she thought, aha, maybe I can make jewelry out of ceramics. And so she took that idea, and the first ones looked like large fishing lures, but now I mean, Joanna Gaines wears her earrings, and she promotes them in her Magnolia. They sell all her stuff in Magnolia Market.
That's amazing.
It is, and she's picked up by Ann Taylor. She's been in Ann Taylor stores as well as this some other large hipster place I'm not really sure about. So, but I'm just fascinated by what she's done, and what's so cool is that she'll say, "Hey, Dad, do you listen to this this podcast called How I Built This by Guy whatever, he's on NPR." And I started listening. She got me listening to this. I'm like, all right, here's my artist daughter listening to entrepreneurial podcasts while she's doing her work and building a business. She's building a brand, building a business, and I'm just so impressed by what she's doing by just following her passion and her gifting. It's just been incredible. And you can see all of her stuff at amberelee.com. But she's all over Instagram and Facebook and so yeah, she's doing a good job.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful to her for teaching you some of those things, because you are certainly ahead of the time. For most people in your demographic are not on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook like you are, and you're very easy to find on those platforms. So those of you listening into this podcast, check him out online. Go to Ancil Lea and look at his Facebook, his Instagram, the website, order Common Grounds and take a read, and just take some time to get to know you better. I know for us, you've added a ton of value to the community of Little Rock, Conway, of Arkansas in general, and I appreciate your work, but more than that, your friendship. And I think, too, that you set that example for your daughter. You're an entrepreneur. You set her up for success, and it's just incredible to watch.
Well, listen, thank you, Jamie, very much. And I want to say how grateful I am to you, and how impressed with I'm so impressed with what you're doing. I want to learn. I mean, you're doing some really cool, cutting edge things, and I want good things for you as well.
I thank you so much, and I am looking forward to seeing what both of us can accomplish together in the future. But thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us and adding value.
Oh, you bet. Well, again, thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. All right, Little Rock, BLOCKtalk is out.